impactful work has been defining the strategy, executing the strategy, and seeing the early business impacts has been a very forthcoming challenge.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajit. And Ritwik, how about you?
Hello, thank you so much for giving the opportunity to chat with you guys today. Um, as you know, my name is Ritvik, and I lead the engineering org that is responsible for building the machine learning infrastructure for ads. Essentially, what you can think about it is the stack that is responsible for building the models that decide which ads are shown on Facebook, Instagram, or Messenger. And I've been at Meta for a little over 6 years now. Um, One thing that I was thinking about is when thinking about the most consequential thing that I've done, I think so for me, it is at the intersection of enabling financial opportunity for a lot of people and building systems for the long term. And I think so, like in the process of doing that, we've been able to double our year-over-year incremental revenue each year for a period of time using AI, and that has been very rewarding. And that means we need to bring path-breaking AI research to production and more ads models faster than anyone else. And I think so, like to do this, we need to go ahead and take on few transformative bets, which are likely industry first, whether it be like taking and building these super clusters for training and inference, few of those that Ajit touched on, or building privacy first feature engineering, or auto ML based solutions which work at planet scale. I think so, like it's just very exciting for me to be at the intersection of these.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajit. And last but not least, we have Brad Green.
Hi, yes, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, I'm supporting a group of operating system engineers that support all of the AR and VR devices here at Meta. And I've only been here for about 2.5 years, but it's been an amazing journey, and we're on a tremendous growth path. The coolest thing about it, though, is that getting to support all of the product experiences, all of the new devices that launch, that together make up this new set of experiences that we are building towards in the metaverse. And it just gets more exciting from here. So it's just amazing things I get to look forward to from here on out.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. And with that, I'll start diving into the questions that y'all in the audience had asked. So the first one is, what problem is the metaverse trying to solve? And how can it be a force of good for society? Brad, your thought?
Yeah, there's a lot in here to unpack, but the core of it, I think, is around how do we make it possible for us to be co-present with each other when we can't be? And this has all become really apparent that where I'm sure all of us miss being able to be with our coworkers. And these are some of the experiences we want to enable. So it can not just be like we are over video conference right now, where we have to kind of wait for each other to talk, and the collaboration, it doesn't feel like we're together. We want to solve that. And for families, like I haven't been back to Iowa to see my parents. I would love to go do the equivalent of sitting on a couch and watching a movie with them. How do we bring folks back together where they can't be? And like, even though it seems so important now, like for the global environment we're in, it's only going to become more important in the future. On the other side, we also want to enable the folks who are going to help us build out the metaverse, you know, the people, businesses, and creators. We want to make space for them to both unlock these opportunities with us and unlock new revenue streams for themselves.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. And actually, yeah, Brad and I work on operating systems to support AR and VR devices. And right when COVID started, we were all, trying to ship Quest 2, and we're actually doing a lot of our meetings in workrooms. And that was the first time that we got to kind of share that same sense of space and presence again. So thanks, Brad. Ajit, what do you think about Metaverse?
Yeah, I think Brad covered a lot of aspects, but I just want to add a few more things. So today, if you look at the internet, we look at across various devices. The idea of metaverse is tomorrow you will be the internet, you will be in the internet. So it's metaverse is a embodied experience with more natural way to interact with internet. It's an immersive 3D experience, which feels it's much more like you are with others, even though you're not physically present, right? So there is an aspect of co-presence, there is an aspect of continuity with respect to, hey, being between the spaces seamlessly, interoperable objects, etc. So those are a lot of hardware and software foundational challenges. So the end result of metaverse is going to be a social, being more expressive, being more productive and entertaining, right? So that's the end result of metaverse. And as I said, we here at Meta are focused on the foundational hardware and software that's required to build an immersive, embodied internet. And that's what this metaverse is all about.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajit. Our next question, guidance for new or experienced candidates. How do they get the skill sets required for the metaverse? Ajit?
Oh, good question. I think if you think about it, metaverse has multiple layers, right? I mean, so let me just start with, say, infrastructure, right? So this includes things like 5G. This includes things like cloud, GPU, and silicon expertise. So we are looking for people who has those kind of skill sets, so who can bring and come in and build infrastructure. And then above that, there's human interfaces like what you mentioned, Fana. You're wearing a, glass, and how do you have wearable technologies? Includes mobile aspects, including gesture, voice, and multimodal interfaces, right? So those aspects are very important. And then you look at spatial computing, right? So you need AR, VR there, and you need 3D engines, right? Like Unity and all of those aspects. Those expertise are very much important. And then discovery, Ritvik alluded to ads. I mean, how do we have ads network able to get the best content to the user? So that's included in there. And then at the topmost layer is experience, like what is the end experience going to be like, whether it's gaming, shopping, all of those experience that comes on top of. So this has multiple layers, and there's a lot of kind of expertise that's required to fill in the metaverse needs. And if you look at, one of the foundational elements of this is artificial intelligence, right? So it's going to play a big role to build the metaverse. And we just announced the AI research supercomputer, which is the fastest supercomputer. And one of the things that we want to do in the context of metaverse is that how do we make sure that we have these AI models that can train from the trillions of examples? We can have multiple languages because metaverse is all about being, also having additional language capabilities. And that's what this supercomputer is able to bring and train this multimodal languages.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ajit. So we spent some time on metaverse. Let's actually bubble up a bit and kind of think about broader meta as well. Could you please share some insights on what's the work culture like at Meta? Ritwik?
Culture is always a hard question to think about, and the way that I've come down to understand this is if you look back, what are the key things that we really recognize, and what are the things when we see draws a visceral reaction for the system to go ahead and correct for it. So that in the sum things of forms the culture, and distilling that down, I could recall three things that jump out is we do focus on impact, and that's the core of this company. But I think so the other thing that is there that we're able to do well is build for the long term. Look past the 6 months and the 12-month headlines and look at what we'd be doing in a decade. And I think so that's another unique thing that I think so speaks both to the product and the engineering orgs as well as the careers that we have built. And I think so to cover it off, I think so it is we do challenge each other in our assumptions, in our beliefs at times as well. So I think so increasingly out of I've been in the industry for a couple of decades, but I think so we're able to do so in an empathetic way. So those would be three aspects that jump out to me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and actually I still continue to feel that sense of community and connection with everyone I work with, even in this extended work from home and kind of this, and culture's a living, breathing thing. And so it kind of takes all of us. And so I really appreciate it as all kind of still working together towards that. In terms of job openings, do we have full-time remote or hybrid applicants? Ritwik?
Yeah, I think so. All three we'd encourage, and I think so. This is one good side effect of COVID. We all thought that this was maybe possible in a decade, but that's right now as well. I've been sitting in this living room for about 2.5 years. I've never met Ajit. Ajit joined during COVID, and we have collaborated, I think so, very well across different orgs, and that I think so. Being able to do this across nations and time zones would be what we'd be looking at, and so all of those would be things that we'd be working on and hiring at.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because Brad and I've been working together for like 2.5 years, and the first time we actually met each other was last November, I think. So yeah, it's been amazing to be able to work across, as you say, like time zones and locales. Let's see, future hiring plan in Canada. What parts of the business at Meta will be focused or developed in Canada? Brad?
Yeah, I'll cover the part in Reality Labs, and definitely hiring from my area in operating systems, definitely, but also hiring across our other areas, including Oculus products that extend what we've done in Quest 2 is out in the market, had an amazing year this year. The research that goes into future products, the AI, and the rest of the product teams building the other parts of the experiences are all hiring in there. But maybe let me pass to Ritwik to talk a little bit more about the things in your area too.
I think so broadly across the board, we'd be developing up in Canada. I think so to start from all the product people who were there, we'd be building a lot of new experiences in Messenger, in WhatsApp. So entire messaging area is very exciting across different products and the strengths that they bring in. I think so in the same vein, a key part of this company has been is how do we support millions of businesses to and provide them economic opportunity, and that would stay at the center. And I think so there are different business teams and the ads organization itself that would have a strong presence in Canada. And I think so underpinning all of this is our technology around our infrastructure in AI, and that would be present in Canada as well. So a lot of exciting things across the board.
Awesome. Thanks, Ritwik. Actually, speaking of WhatsApp, I'm interested to hear from James. How do engineers select their tracks for teams to join? For example, if I'm a generalist software engineer, how do I find that role?
Yeah, thanks. It's a really great question. And so for some engineers, they decide the team they join before they join. And so I, for example, decide I want to go join WhatsApp, so I join WhatsApp directly, but then I have to choose a team. Most of the engineers go through Meta's bootcamp process, which is kind of unique, and I think it's actually really great. You get to take a couple of courses, and so when I joined, I was a senior engineer, and they had courses on how do you succeed as a senior engineer, but also you get to touch code bases that you otherwise wouldn't, right? So most companies you start, and if you're a C++ hacker, you go and you do C++. Here you might get to touch on the Android code base or React code base and everything. One of the other cool things is that for most engineers, they'll join, and within a couple of weeks, they'll write, so oftentimes in a couple of days, they'll write some amount of code that gets live on the site or that has an immediate impact. And there's something really fulfilling about that and really grounding. After you've done this for a little bit, you start looking at teams that you might want to join. So if you want to join my team, for example, and it was kind of early in the process, I would still tell you to go talk to other teams. I still want you to join my team, of course, but this enables you to go off and see wider parts of the organization, and then go off and see the bits in the Oculus teams or the ads team or whatnot. As far as choosing tracks, once you're within a team, Meta is an engineering-driven company, and so a lot of the products and a lot of the development ideas are engineering-led. If you just started, you'd probably ask more tenured team members, hey, what's a good problem that I can solve? And you go through there. But as you get more tenure on a team and more experience in a team, the engineers at Meta do have a lot of agency to go set the wider technical path, and they're both empowered and accountable for the outcomes that they're able to provide.
Awesome. Thanks, James. And I highly recommend the bootcamp program. I actually did it myself. And as James mentioned, it was amazing because you got to go across so many different product teams and kind of that's your opportunity to learn more about different parts of the stack. In fact, I would say, if let's say, actually, when I joined, I had a feeling that I would be really passionate about marketplace, but then I want to work on other areas of the team because that's a great time to learn about all aspects of the business. And the cool part is you really have this tribe. So your fellow boot campers, you also form all these connections. Yeah, for me, it's been 6.5 years, and I actually still meet up with all the folks in my same boot camp class. It's been a really cool experience. Okay, what about, ooh, how's this one? What are the challenges to create a team that is fully focused on remote work from across the world? Brad?
Yeah, you mentioned the Workrooms product that we have available in the Quest line right now, where if you think about what you might be dissatisfied with about meeting over video conference or chat rooms or what the tools that we have all become to rely on here in COVID time, you can think about, well, I might miss being able to have multiple conversations in the room at the same time, where with things like spatialized audio, we can allow you to sort out the conversations. And so not everybody has to wait and you don't have these long pauses that really kind of remove the ability to collaborate freely in an environment. You could also think about where, our brains have to do a transformation to map everything into these flat 2D docs and chats. And what we really like to do is get into a room with a whiteboard or some pieces on a table for doing like space planning. We want to replicate those experiences. You can start to see those already in the Workrooms product that we have today. It's a pretty fun experience. And then the next layer of that is like, how do we make it feel real and live? Because there's that sense of connection we miss, and it's super palpable. A lot of the work we have going in now around the realisticness of the avatars that represent us, how well can that represent the feeling of being together, so that, I remember having an experience where I was worried about kicking somebody under the desk when we were around a virtual table, because it felt like I was there. And this is super early days. Now, from here on out, I think some of the big challenges are around how do we integrate things that already exist? We can have whiteboards in this sort of collaboration space, but we can't build it all ourselves. There are existing docs that we use and all kinds of systems we've built that need to be able to be accessed in there in ways that make sense in a 3D space. And we, again, want to make space for other creators to imagine those more 3D applicable things so that it will feel like the real world. We can have those artifacts that we manipulate together in that 3D space. A lot more to go into it, but super passionate about it. It's very fun.
Awesome, thanks, Brad. And yeah, actually, that whole collaborative whiteboard, we played a few like Pictionary games in VR as we're doing like how do we do remote like team building activities. So that's been lots of fun. Okay, next question. What is the interview process for senior developers? If we go back to kind of getting ready to join, James.
Yeah. And so our typical interview process is similar among a lot of the other tech companies. And so we would tend to interview based on your technical skills. We'd have some situational questions, and we ask questions about system and product design. So for the technical skills, that's oftentimes coding, right? I'm going to ask something that has recursion, and there's a big number of questions I'm going to ask just to ensure that when you join, you're able to start right away. The system and product design, we probably ask one or the other. We've asked, hey, how would you build this kind of system? Would we focus on backend storage and throughput and capacity and all sorts of these kinds of things? And it's the kind of thing where if you've been building distributed systems for 20 years, it's going to feel straightforward and obvious, but it's really to check, what is your degree of experience and how much you're going to be able to contribute, and are we able to fit you into a role that's really going to match your skill set and capabilities? If your background's more on the product end, right, you're probably not going to be talking about database, QPS or something like that. You might talk about how you ensure that you have a good product experience, regardless of whether you're working on a surface like a mobile phone or a web browser or an offline or an online experience or something like that. So I'll ask you, what are the technical things that you would want to build to enable these features? So you'd ask a technical bit and then a design bit. We also ask you situational questions about your how you behaved in different situations at work, right? To ensure I mean, everyone runs into conflicts. How have you handled those? Everyone has a really great mentor. Everyone, many of us, especially more senior people, are starting to mentor people. What are the experiences that we've shared through there? And, how do you feel about the feedback you've gotten and not? And the purpose of these kinds of questions is to really try to understand what's the best role for you. Do we have a fit where you're really going to thrive and succeed?
Awesome. Thanks, James. And I should mention, especially in all of us in this extended remote, I've been really impressed that we've also updated to make sure we've been doing all the interviews remote, including the coding. And after 2.5 years, I feel like we've gotten a lot better at it. So appreciate that too.
We have absolutely gotten better at that. Yes.
Next question. What role does operations research or mathematical optimization play in your research and development? Ajit, did you want to take this one?
I will let Ritvik, you want to take on to it, please?
I'll quickly take that as well. I think so. There's several places that we do this. I can speak to a couple of those enhance. As you can imagine, we make a ton of decisions. These decisions could be about which models we launch. It could be about what kind of infrastructure we are using to launch those on. And all of these decisions need to be very high quality, because a good decision to a bad decision differentiates whether a bunch of businesses would end up having their spend wasted, or we as people seeing poor ads. So those kind of decisions need very strong operations research or quant background to build such systems. I think so. Similar set applies to we run some of the largest real-time auctions in the industry. So that requires a lot of quantitative economic background as well. So overall, with these areas, I think so we have got a community of operations research, statisticians that we have developed over, like, I think so close to a decade or so.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing to what Ritvik mentioned. I mean, in the AI space, if you look at, it's all about mathematical optimizations, whether it is backprop, ad-grad, all of those are core math problems, and there is so much of mathematical, aspects that's involved. So if you are specialized and if that's really your strength, AI is other space that you could be venturing into.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajit. And actually, while I have you, another question for you. What types of jobs are available? I'm a graphics designer turned test engineer who creates software, and I want to be part of the future here at Meta.
Yeah, I think great question. I think if you look at from a Metaverse context, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of core software that our team develop here. These software components requires a lot of custom test cases, automated test cases, end-to-end software validation, etc. So, for example, in the AI space, if you look at it, we are talking about writing graph compilers. We are talking about writing LLVM-based compilers. A lot of test cases that need to be written to validate those components. We are talking about, how do we have NLP-based models, computer vision-based models? What are some of the test cases that need to be written to that? So it's a combination of knowing your workloads and how do we basically test those workloads in a configured manner or in a more scaled manner. All of those aspects are very, very important. So your test background is extremely useful in this space.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajit. And actually, as we're talking about all these different skill sets and everything that we need to kind of like build all the products and infrastructure that we do, Brad, I'd love to get your take on what do you feel are the critical elements needed to ensure you maintain an inclusive, diverse, and solution-oriented culture at Meta?
Yeah, this is a deep one, and I think about it a lot. And I've come to think that everybody can play a role here. And this is one of the things that I love about Meta. And we have this sort of inspiring phrase, which is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I think it takes that kind of thinking to make the conversations apparent, that makes it feel safe, so that everyone on the team can feel like I'm treated fairly and I can succeed. Now, a lot of this, though, I think has to be led by the managers, the people supporting the orgs. It's up to them to go out and actually seek diversity in the way you compose your team, and then maintain that ability for everyone to feel like they can succeed with differing viewpoints. And this is the thing, you have to lead by example. You have to show that it's okay to do this. You also have to be really sensitive to where it's not going well. Like in this space, it's often easy, because humans all want to get along, to sometimes hide some of the things that might not be going well, that can decrease people's ability to feel safe. And that's really our role as senior leaders, to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. And by the way, like this diversity I thought is so important, because it does result in more amazing products and making products that can solve for the world. Like I actually remember the first team I joined at Meta was Marketplace, and we were thinking of, hey, what kind of C2C experiences do we want to enable? And there was an amazing engineer on the team, and she gave super valuable insight of, if you have toddlers, you actually sell so much of the items that your kids use, because kids grow out of things so fast. And that was such an amazing insight that enabled us to really also think about that use case that without her input, we never, might have thought about it during that time. So actually at this time, we started to get some live questions. So I'll dive into some of those. The first one, can you say a couple words on the work-life balance in a remote working context? James?
Yeah. And so when I think right now we sort of feel that we're remote, but we're not really remote because we're in COVID, they're not quite locked down, but it's harder to get out. So I have a bunch of young kids. That makes it really hard for me to get out. So I'm home a lot more. And that does mean that the work-life separation is harder. And so when I think about work from home, and when I think about when I would go travel somewhere and work remotely before the virus, I'd go out to a coffee shop in the morning. I'd go to a gym at the end of the day, and this way I'd be able to get really clear boundaries. And I don't have those, and I think that's really tough. So I think the work-life balance is really going to change as COVID ends. But I'm also pretty optimistic, and I think there's a bunch of areas where it's going to actually be better for folks who are remote. One of the strongest developers on my team, and he actually lives closer to the office than I do, said, hey, I kind of want to go remote. And his thinking was that his video conferences are really effective. Working from home gives him focus, and he has a lot more control over his time. And the other thing is that just the shorter commute, even though his commute is, just the absolute commute, even though his commute is shorter than mine, he doesn't like being in the car for 20 minutes there and back. So he'd rather spend it with his family and his kids. The other thing is that, I admit that during the pandemic, hard day, I've got an hour, I'm exhausted, I've taken naps, right? Things like this. And that's just really hard to do in the office. So remote means it's going to be a lot easier to take a nap or a hike midday or whatever you're really going to do to be your most creative and be at your best. It also means for a lot of us, you can be at home when your kids get back from school, and that's a really big deal, something that my dad didn't get to do. And you really get to work the way that best suits you. So we're going to all keep learning. Everyone is going to keep learning what it means for everyone to be back in the office, to be working remotely as everything opens. And I don't think that any of us really have a whole picture, but I'm really optimistic about the future of remote work and the efficiencies and the way that it's going to allow us to live the way that we want to live and really have our best lives.
That's awesome. And actually, I love that. I remember when this whole thing started and me and Brian, we were talking about one of the things we saw was we realized with so many parents and kids, at home, you have to reserve the lunch hour to feed your family. And so we, on the team, we said, hey, no more meetings during lunch. And so that's why I really appreciate that we can even have combos like that. And actually, to my favorite part about working from remote is dog-friendly offices. And so to your point, being able to take my dog Porthos out for that little tiny walking break, maybe in between meetings, that's been great. Awesome. Thanks, James. And let's see. Ooh, I got another good one. What are the top defining characteristics of a leader at Meta? Ajit, did you want to take that one?
Oh, sure. I think being a leader at Meta is a different challenge altogether because, if you look at it, you need to be a thought leader and you need to drive and rally the team behind your thought leadership. That's number one. Number two is for you to be able to collaborate across the organizational boundaries and also outside the organization sometimes, outside the company. The problems that we are solving here is very complex. It's problems that are at scale. And that's not something that you can do with your team. you need to understand that you need to expand beyond your teams, beyond your company sometimes to really solve that problem. Number three is you need to be good at supporting and building your organization. You really need to sometimes build your organization from scratch. So as a leader, you need to have the capability to build your organization, have ability to, again, strategize, ability to have the necessary right set of mindsets in the team to make that vision possible. For me, the fourth thing is delivering the team impact, both short term and the long term, right? So some of the things that we talked about, like Metaverse, it's a multi-year journey. So it's very important for us to break that multi-year journey into a smaller halves and ability to gauge how we are able to deliver to that, smaller halves or yearly based impacts, right? And as we learn, some of these things, we need to be able to course correct too. So as a leader, your capability to course correct, rally your team behind that is very, very important.
Great points, Ajit. Thank you. I have one more question here. What are some of the major challenges you've faced so far? Brad?
Yeah, okay, so I've got organizational scaling challenges. I can talk a lot about that. We were growing incredibly quickly. There are technical challenges about how do we get the experiences onto form factors and small devices that the world has never seen before. But one of the ones that I think about a lot, and I still continue, boggles my mind at how ambitious we are. It's around the sheer number of devices and experiences that we're addressing to build the metaverse now. And that continues to grow. And that's the reason why we have all these technical and organizational challenges. And I think that will be core to what we do at Meta for a while as we're building out what this new metaverse is. It's both challenging and unnerving and exciting at the same time. And I kind of call that emotion exhilaration, and it's fantastic.
And you bring up a good point about all these devices. And we also have this amazing family of apps on the mobile devices or desktop, and so also trying to figure out like how we start bringing some of those experiences into like Metaverse, and also vice versa. I remember when we first started working in VR, I used to live stream a lot of my VR experiences onto Facebook because back then they weren't as common. I remember that was how my friends were like, oh, so this is what you see when you put a headset on. So it's amazing to share those. Okay, we have a live question. Are engineers able to move easily between teams at Meta? How do leaders support the process if an employee shows interest in another project? James, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's really encouraged, right, to enable your employees to move. It's as a manager, my role is not to see you as my employee. My role is to see a wider product that I want to get done, and to recognize that somebody who is a star on my team, maybe they'll have a better opportunity somewhere else, or maybe their goal in life isn't to be a star on my team. It's to work on another team with a more meaningful product to them personally. I think that my work is most meaningful here, or maybe to go somewhere else. And even though I thought them a star, maybe they're a superstar in the next place. And so it's very easy. We ask that you stay with the team for a long enough time to evaluate, but you don't want to keep on, you don't want to onboard your team to move and things like that. But it's remarkably easy. Everything's well advertised. Teams run recruiting fairs internally fairly constantly to try to encourage people to come and join. And so it's about the best of any of the major tech companies I've been at.
Yeah, and actually, James, you touched a lot on our interview process before. Like the reason why we also have such a really solid interview process is once you're in Meta, because we want to make sure that's the bar across, right? So whether you're on Reality Labs, or WhatsApp, or AI, or Instagram, that we're calibrating fairly. And this way, once you join after sufficient time on the team, if you want to go do a new adventure, it's really just a conversation with a new team and your managers. I was at a company before where to switch teams within the company, you had to pre-interview. The first, and I'm like, oh my, I don't know about y'all, interviewing is one of my favorite things to do. And I just love that.
Okay.
Yes. The first round is fun.
We make them fun.
I was like, oh man, I was going to have to study for a long time. But anyways, I really appreciate that within Meta, and actually all the managers too, it's always about global maxima. We want to land you at a place where you are most excited, and you're growing where you need to go, because that will just create a better product.
Okay, I'll reload into your machine here.
So with that, I don't see any other new questions yet, but I have another really good kind of like meta question, if you will. Where do you all see Meta 10 years from now? Ajit?
Let's see. Yeah, just click yes, okay on the pop-up.
You might be muted.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think as we learned in this drive, we had a multi-year investment that's being made on Metaverse. It's ushering a new chapter for our company. And if you look at Metaverse is going to
it's not on your machine, it's on Milton's.
For people and communities, bring the social aspects much more closer than what it is today. And we are excited to have bright minds in Canada, Toronto, to be part of this.
You have two screens, right?
Thank you. James?
Yeah, that's
do you type in any keywords to that email you're looking for in the search box there?
2010, and I think what's happened since then. I mean, there've been all sorts of technical revolutions. So you look at the smartphone and the video revolution, the revolution. And if you were to ask me in 2010 this question, I don't know if I'd be able to say, hey, we're just going to casually be able to access most of human knowledge, right? Or record with a fantastic camera. We bought a Nikon a great Nikon after our first kid was born, and it just sits in a closet because my phone is so much better. So I could just record anything with a great camera and share it to the entire world, or just share it to my closest friends, just casually over 5G, like nothing.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
That's amazing. I don't think I would have pegged that. So looking forward to the next 10 years is a dangerous game. I think that Meta is fundamentally about connecting people. And connecting people is just such a core part of the human experience that I'm really confident that's what we're going to be doing. I think more about WhatsApp than the other bits of the metaverse. And so for WhatsApp, our goal is really to make it feel like you're there in person. And we're a little bit more conservative on technology because we want to have a very simple experience that works across everything. So I wouldn't commit to saying that WhatsApp is going to be the a fully VR app as you're walking around or things like that in 10 years. But we will certainly try to be leading an experience to ensure that you feel like you're able to connect with the people you want to, feel like it's right in your living room.
Anybody from the sender's domain,
too.
so anybody else that uses the same domain
that
the sender, like for example,
my answer is a lot similar to James, where connection is such the
probably hit
driving
domain
force
there
for
because I'll
humans.
cover everybody.
And we already see the start of it becoming a thing that you can experience. You can experience this together experience in ways that you can't in any other medium. And the devices are nothing like we're going to see in 10 years, right? We're pushing the boundaries on what's possible in hardware and longevity and fidelity to the real world. And it will go slow in the first couple of years, but like we always underestimate how transformative something is going to be in the long term, and we overestimate it in the short term. And in 10 years, it's incredibly exciting because I think this drawing connection is going to be the thing that pulls us all into the metaverse. And it's going to transform how we interact with computers in general, going from fixed screens and phones into devices that feel like they're more part of us.
Wow, I love it. Like what you both say resonate a lot with me because you're right. When I think back to 2012, I wouldn't have thought that. When actually another plug for Quest 2, Supernatural, it's an amazing workout app. That's how I've been, this touches on the whole work-life balance too. I used to love to go to these yoga retreats, but with no travel, Supernatural has become my primary way to get these amazing immersive workout experiences. And if you were to ask me 10 years ago hey, to get a really good cardio workout, will you strap a device onto your head and flail your arms around? And I would have been, what are you talking about? But that's now become part of my daily life. And so it is amazing to think about how far we've come in the 10 years. And we are kind of on this bleeding edge and kind of building the next computing platform. You both also touched on connection. And this is actually an interesting tie into a live question that came up, which is, I'm sure each of you panelists had your choice of which company to join. I would be curious to know why you chose Meta.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'll actually
Okay, cool.
start on that. Yeah, because I was having a lot of fun building developer tools and languages for a long time. And then I had
Okay,
a
no
friend
problem.
who's been having a lot of fun at Meta. And one day he said, I'm seeing a lot of people buying and selling on Facebook groups, and we're thinking of building a product around it. This was late 2014. And I remember going, oh my gosh, I'm in one of those groups. It was one of those groups for folks that love the Target. I don't know if Target is still in Canada anymore. They might have tried a small time, but I think the stores have closed. But it's this amazing store where you can get and they had this cool kind of like clothing line with special designers, but it was all sold out. And so the next day, a bunch of us formed this group on Facebook that was about fans of this collaboration. And our whole goal was to help each other buy these items at cost, not for profit, because a lot of folks were buying things from Target and then selling them at eBay for 3 times the price. But that was the first time I made meaningful new connection with strangers. Because before then, Facebook for me was about connecting with like maybe old friends or coworkers or family. I made meaningful new friends. But the shared love of Target, we ended up having these Target dates across, and there was 1,000 of us in this group. So across all the different Targets in the U.S., we'd have little like meetups. And I'm still actually friends with the Seattle Target group that I met all those years ago. So that was what actually drew me to Meta. It was this amazing kind of making meaningful new connections, and then I also just love the idea of people connected through love of whether it's commerce or like other interests. Like that really drew me to Meta. Ajay, what drew you to Meta when you joined?
Great question. So I think I come from my initial days were with Motorola doing a lot of consumer products, and that was a pretty interesting problem to solve. What really the consumers really love, right? And how do we design products for their taste? And after that, I moved to semi-industry, basically working for Intel and AMD, etc. Uh, Supplying the silicon, which is put in these data centers. And if you look at the Meta's problem space is a scale at the scale of billions, right? So if you really need to enter into the billions of scale problems, to me, I felt it's important for me to understand what are those kind of problems and where else can you learn other than Meta, right? I mean, there's no other place where you can have that kind of challenge. So this has been a pretty enlightening journey for me to join in the Meta's AI workloads and understanding the AI workloads, how do they scale, what are some of the infrastructure challenges that they have. And now with the Metaverse, it's even better because you're not just talking about cloud, you're talking about smaller devices. What are some of the power, performance, thermal characteristics challenges that you will have when you want to scale at that, different scales, different types of devices, right? So how do you make those interoperable? So that's what drew me to Meta.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajay. James, what about you?
Yeah, I think to answer this question, I should share that I got a PhD in distributed systems, and I spent about a decade at Google. And so, my background certainly influences where I went. And when I was at Google, I admired Facebook at the time's execution and their velocity on things, which is, Meta was able to go and change in a changing environment. And we have nothing if not a changing environment right now. And so I'm really excited about our trajectory. The other thing was that I wanted to have a closer impact on people. And that really drew me into WhatsApp, given the impact that WhatsApp had on me personally. We had an au pair at the time who used WhatsApp, shared family photos on WhatsApp. I remember going to an event with my wife and just being amazed at the best way to go and share a photo from someone who had taken it right next to me. It wasn't something on the phone, it was to send a message on WhatsApp. So everything was archived, easy, private, simple. And so I felt like that kind of product impact was really important to me. What I didn't realize to the degree until I really got here was the degree that Meta works to try to be a really great place to be as a workplace, right? And this even went kind of beyond my expectations here from Google, which itself is an incredible place to work, right? And what I really like about this is it means that when I'm at work, I just have fewer things to worry about, right? I don't have to worry about my dental insurance plan. I didn't have to worry about maternity leave. Everything is just top tier. And that means that I can focus on doing the best work of my career when I'm at work, and I get a little more time to, ensure I'm focused on anything except for work when I'm off. And so I think for me, it was a combination of seeing this incredible execution of velocity and having a little more impact directly on people that kind of drew me here.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, before Meta, I was also at Google, and I get to do some very fun things there. I got to build a bunch of new things. I started the accessibility engineering team. We built all of the automatic captions in YouTube and all of the accessibility in Chrome and Android. Super inspiring. I got to build a popular web framework called Angular, and these sort of startup new greenfield projects became less and less possible. We were still working on big problems, but it was very incremental, and it wasn't super satisfying. And the other thing, and maybe the most important thing that made me go seek something else, was it became harder and harder to collaborate. And I was looking for a company with a culture where collaboration was valued as a core principle. And I've not been disappointed. I love this thing, maybe more than anything else at Meta, is that everybody is waiting for you to come so that they can help you get started and find something to work on together. And I love that about this place.
Ah, I love it. Yeah, I think to that point, Brad, I remembered actually, just to circle back to boot camp a little. I still remember when I was at boot camp working on these tasks, I had so many questions. And you never meet these folks, right? Because I was in Seattle at the time, and these folks were working in MPK. I remember thinking, oh man, I hope I'm not going to bug them. And I send a message. And I was so taken back by how collaborative it was, even with someone that you may have never met. And so, yeah, that's one of these core culture tenets that I love here at Meta. Okie dokie. I think we're coming up onto our final question, folks. And it's a good one. What advice or final piece of wisdom would you like to leave with our audience? Ajit?
I think one piece of advice would be basically be open-minded, or learn new things quickly, and you want to apply that, and you want to really strive on that. I think this is a great place to be.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big advice that I give is go try to figure out what's really meaningful to you, and then try to figure out how in your work you can go and realize that. And so for me, I think finding meaning in my work has definitely been finding ways to help connect people in ways they haven't gotten connected before, and participate in this wider world without necessarily being everywhere at once.
Love it. Brad?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in a bunch of different angles, but there's this huge cultural thing about supporting exploration and us wanting to support each other in it, and supporting ability to change jobs or think about new products or disagree with each other in meaningful ways that support those new paths. And so I would love for all of you to come explore with us. What could a career at Meta look like, so that you can join us in thinking about how we can push each other.
Love it. And for me, it's actually probably similar to James. It's like, what is it that you're passionate about? Like, what very interesting problems do you want to contribute and solve? And I've always found that, when you go after something that you're passionate about, number one, you just have a lot more fun. And if you can find a job where it's fun, you're not really working a day in your life, right? And I believe that passion and belief in that mission also carries you through the tough times. When it's like late at night, sometimes if you're like working on a coding problem, we've all been there, and you're like, why am I doing this? It's because you want to kind of you believe in that mission or that vision, and that's how you build a grit muscle. So for me, it all kind of starts in terms of what you're really passionate about. Awesome. Well, I want to take the time to thank all our amazing panelists like Ajit, James, Brad, and Ritwik unfortunately had to leave because he had a conflict. But really, thank you so much to all our panelists and sharing all your insights and wisdom. And also, thank you so much to the audience in Canada. Y'all had amazing questions both before, and then also I love the live questions. And we really appreciated this opportunity to chat with you all over this Zoom webinar. And yeah, we hope, as Brad says, that we piqued your curiosity and you find something you're passionate about and come join and help us build the future. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.